We are the Church of the Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundary, working toward creating a global spiritual community, rooted in profound love, which cultivates wonder, imagination, and the courage to act. Adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for many bricks and mortar congregations. Early on in the pandemic, we were in a unique position to assist many congregations with the transition. We hosted special episodes of The VUU, provided advice and counseling to religious professionals, and trained congregations for live streaming worship, all while providing robust online programming for our members. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine to our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison, and investing in innovative ministry. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and to fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The VUU. The VUU is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message. Hi, I'm Aisha Hauser, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm coming to you from Seattle, Washington, land of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish. It is gray and my heart is heavy, and I imagine most of our hearts are heavy this morning after yet another school shooting, 19 children and at least two adults murdered. So we will get to our guests. We will first, I will pass this to my co-hosts, and then we'll do a UU roundup and talk with Nicole Pressley about how we go from outrage to action. So I am going to send this over to Kiana Dene.
I'm muted again. I do this all the time. Hi, y'all. My name is Kiana Dene, and I am here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the land that originally belonged to the Potawatomi people that was worked by everybody, including holding labor from Africa. The weather here, I think, is good. I haven't left my house today, and my curtains are all closed because I like to be heat efficient. I'm not turning on that AC until I have to. So we're going to keep some curtains closed. We're going to keep the shades down. But I plan to get outside after this. And I guess I just wanted to acknowledge how many beautiful places there is to walk and to be surrounded in nature here in Michigan. Whether it's the Huron River or a state park or a national park, I'm just kind of really in love with outside right now, and in love with with Ann Arbor's outsideness. I want to pass it to my friend who's in the peak skills, my friend Michael.
Greetings, everyone. Michael Tino here, joining you from Peekskill, New York, in the beautiful Hudson Valley of New York, land of the Kitchewan and Wappinger bands of the Lenape Nation, and where nature is making us notice beauty, even amidst the ugliness that humans perpetrate on it. The irises and the peonies are blooming in an explosion of color and fragrance in my yard. My favorite neighborhood bird, the cardinals that nest in the maple tree outside my back door, have hopped onto the fence to say hi, and nature is just saying there are still beautiful things. I have a second grader, as many of you out there know, and in the light of the news like what we've seen in the world, it is hard just to get up in the morning and send the child to school. So it's hard, and but it's beautiful here, and I have to notice the beauty, even amidst the difficulty. DC Fortune, how are you?
Hi everyone. I am doing all right. I am here in again a moderately sketchy motel in Shamokin Dam, Pennsylvania, at the confluence of the West Branch and North Branch of the Susquehanna River, named for the people who originally populated this beautiful valley. I'm in the process of buying a house, and so I am here until I can get access to my new place. But Michael, you will be delighted to know that I have so far been able to recognize and identify an azalea, which is in bloom and it's beautiful. I have lilacs, I have hostas, and I even have a rose bush. And I spoke to the neighbor who asked me about them, and I told her that if she would like to care for them, they might live. Because if I am to care for them, they don't have much of a chance. So, but if she wants to enjoy their blooms, by all means, she can talk nicely to them and do whatever it is that flowers totally need that I don't understand. So with that, I'm going to send it back to Aisha, who is our primary host, to get on with the UU Roundup and such.
Thank you. I think we can all be on screen for this one, the hosts. So there is an election for 2 spots on the UUA Board of Trustees. And Tanner will put the link in the comment section, chat, wherever you all are watching, to the statements. So we will encourage you all to read all the statements. 2 are from folks who've been vetted by the UUA nominating committee, and 2 folks are running by petition. One of them is suggesting that those who are young and have marginalized identities form a new UU, 21st century UUs. Okay. What do y'all think about
25% into the 21st century, it's bold of someone with 19th century UU ideas to suggest that. No.
I thought Channing died.
Woo!
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
So I want to go, I want to speak about this from a very different perspective, which is one where I don't always know the process and procedure. Can somebody just give me just a Reader's Digest of are folks nominated and vetted to be a part of our board? And then there's a voting process, I assume, that happens at GA. Can somebody fill the parts in I'm missing?
Well, I used to be the chair of the UUA nominating committee at one point. And folks apply. We sometimes recruit. We talk to people from all over the country. And then we vet them so that people are asked to apply, fill out an application with references. We check references. And then we deliberate in an effort to truly choose the folks who have the skills and capacity, skills to fit what the board needs. And because we are a democratic process, folks can run by petition. Michael actually served on the board. So now you have both parts of, I've never served on the UUA board. I've worked for the UUA at one point, but I was on the nominating committee. So Michael, do you want to speak to the board part?
Well, I think the things that the nominating committee looks for are how people are engaged with the UUA's mission, and with and have the skills and gifts to move us forward as an association in the ways that our congregations are calling us to move forward. I just want to be clear that it's not some external authority that's calling us to move forward in these ways. It's our congregations that have time and time again instructed the board, instructed the association to move forward, to dismantle white supremacy culture, to move forward, to become an anti-racist, anti-oppressive institution, to move forward, to proclaim good news and to welcome youth and young adults into our association, right? So it's our congregations that have called us forward in this way, and the nominating committee tries to pick candidates who have the ability and the skills to be able to move us forward in that.
So I want to just give some context to our sharing this. It's not to be gossipy or anything. It's to say your denomination that you are a part of is going through a process, and you have an opportunity to engage in the process. You have an opportunity to act, and you have an opportunity to have all the information at your feet so that when it is time to vote, that you have the best information about how your denomination moves forward. And I say all of that because I'm a person who is in the ministerial formation process in this community, but I also am still learning this community. There are still things that I am learning. And so this process of how someone becomes a part of our board is important, and the steps and opportunities that I have to engage the process, I always want to share with other people because maybe they don't know either. So I guess I thank you all for sharing this with me because I get to learn.
And the people who are running by petition claim that they're doing so to engage the democratic process of our institutions. And so the delegates, the member delegates, ministerial delegates, religious professional, religious educator delegates from our congregations will get a chance to vote in this election. All of the delegates from our member congregations get to vote. And I personally think, I would speak in I statements, I personally think that anyone who reads the 4 statements of the 4 candidates and engages with the democratic process and thinks about what the people who are running are actually saying will have an obvious choice. And that Justine Sullivan and Suzanne Fast, who are the nominating committee's candidates, have a very clear idea of how to move us forward, have a very clear commitment to anti-racism and anti-oppression, have a very clear commitment to youth and young adult empowerment and inclusion. And the other 2 candidates talk in dog whistle language about our heritage and our past. And one of them just outright says, I don't believe we should move forward in the ways that youth and marginalized people are asking us to move forward. I think they should leave.
I mean, that's
one of them outright says that out loud.
That's just a whistle.
She says that out loud.
That's a banner. That's a banner posting. That's not a whistle.
That's not a dog whistle.
Yeah, that's a foghorn. That's a megaphone. That's no dog whistle. Dog whistles are silent.
Well, like talking about our heritage is a dog whistle.
Right.
And then there's this stuff that's just so blatant. I think that if people read those statements, they will come to the obvious conclusion that the nominating committee picked well. The UUA board has also endorsed the nominating committee's candidates as the people who can help move forward the work that the UUA board is working on. It's unusual for the UUA board to have that clear a voice in something like this. All 3 of the lead ministry team at CLF have endorsed Justine and Suzanne, Though the congregation as a whole has not yet. Look forward to a statement from the CLF board in weeks to come.
Yes. Unitarian Universalism is not separate from we've said this for a very long time, many years, especially during the white supremacy teach-in in 2017, that the national rhetoric is being replicated in Unitarian Universalism, and in terms of what a certain demographic of people are afraid of. It's really fear. And this whole, I think somebody, when I posted the candidate statements, one of the comments on my page was, this is you versions of white replacement theory, like this, that there's actually, to tell people who aren't in your demographic to basically go away and form another branch of the faith we're in. What is that? Like, what is the fear? What is it? And so I'm yeah, that's important to name. So anyway, this is a very important. Oh, the other thing is, if you are eligible to be a delegate and you do not want to go to GA or sign up for General Assembly because it is very expensive, you can register as a business delegate and be part of the meetings and be able to vote. You do not need to register.
At no charge.
Huh?
At no charge.
At no charge. It's free.
Yeah, delegates can register for the business of GA at no charge, which is really super development.
So, friends, as we talk about action, right? We talk about this action of engaging our denomination and its governance. What if we introduce our guest, Nicole? And actually, just don't forget that GA is happening, right? Like GA is happening June 20th-ish. If you want to be a part of GA, there's websites and pages and ways to engage, whether you physically attend, whether it's online or what platform you use. Find a way to engage the governance body of our organization, because it does matter and your participation matters. Which leads us to Aisha and Nicole.
We are so grateful. Nicole Pressley is the Field and Programs Director, the Field and Programs Director of the Organizing Strategy Team at the UUA. I'm very excited that the UUA has created an organizing strategy team. And so, Nicole Pressley, thank you for joining us this morning. Welcome. And tell us where you are. Tell us, I am really grateful, for all your work on UU The Vote. That was extraordinary. And I'd love to hear where you all are now, and how do we go from outrage to action?
Yes, thank you, Aisha, and thank you for the entire team inviting me to hang out with you all today. Yeah, I am currently in Niagara Falls, New York, my hometown, which is originally Haudenosaunee land. It is also 15 miles away from the Tops grocery store, where the shooting happened in Buffalo. And something really resonated with me with DC introducing themselemselves and talking about the flowers, because I remember being in New Orleans and seeing a piece of art at the B Mike studio that said, "How can you paint flowers in times like these?" And I think that is really what is at the heart of this work. When we all ask, well, what do we do now? How do we move through this moment? And there is, of course, no one single right answer to that. Moving from outrage to action, I think that is all of the work, right? It's not, okay, organizing over here, outrage over here, beauty and art over here, social justice over here. That at its best, right, justice organizing is always going to be a healing journey, right? So we can have rage, and we can have beauty, and we can have joy, and we can have grief. But at the root of that, it is making sure that we are in community making sure that we are in relationship with people, because that is how we actually cultivate love, not like the flimsy love, but that like radical, grounded love that allows you to move with courage. And I want to say that that courage is not just, direct action and the things that get press, but that courage is parents who decided, not taking my kid to school the next day. Courage is taking a day off and connecting with friends. Sometimes that courage is right making beautiful art and expressing yourselves. We need all the people in all our roles doing exactly what we've been called to do, in this moment, because we all have to move together. And I don't trust a campaign or a movement that says we have to put humanity on pause to win.
That is so real, Nicole. I just want to hold that for a second. Thank you. We can leave right now, right? That's what Lauryn Hill says at the beginning of the album. Lauren's like, they said everything that needed to be said. We out. Oh, Nicole, thank you for that. I want to lean in a little bit and talk about some tangible ways we can get our hands in the mud, because you know what? I want to talk about all the ways we can engage. So yeah, there's ways to get our hands in the mud, but I'm going to tell you right now, my hands are not in the mud. I am way, 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 way far away from mud and water, because that's what I need to do to heal right now, right? So what are some ways, folks, in the work that you do for our community, our larger denomination, that folks can engage, that are really tangible and really connected to the larger systemic issues?
Yeah, so there are a host of things that we do on the Side with Love team that includes all of our programs: Create Climate Justice, You the Vote, decriminalization work, as well as Uplift, LGBTQ ministries, and the reproductive justice work that we are doing. And I say that meaning, yes, there are lots of things, and also we are not all, right? We are not all, we are not everything. We are a container for folks to engage in the work and to get rooted in community, right? Because we know that all politics is local, and that our local communities are the bedrock of moving anything forward. So we have ongoing, we call it a community of praxis meeting. It is a consistent monthly meeting where folks can come to hear about what other folks are doing, troubleshoot what's going on in their campaigns locally on the ground, to be inspired, right? To learn from others, and just get a report in general on all the things that are happening with Side with Love. We also have a monthly training series. It's called our You the Vote Skill Ups, right? Where if there is a skill, if you're sitting right in your congregation going, I want to do something clearly needs to be done, there is a place for you to come and get trained on hard and fast skills to really organize your congregations, and really and create the communities, right, that we are dreaming of. We also have, worship services. We have phone banks where we're actually not just talking to the general public talking about voting, but we're talking to one another, right? We have UUs on the phones calling other Unitarian Universalists, checking in with them, learning about what's going on, learning about what is needed, and inviting them into the work. I think organizing is always right. It is always a constant invitation. It is always constantly cultivating that relationship. So that's just a few of the things that we've been doing. We just finished, and this is something that has also been, personally on my heart, is we held an event with the National Network of Abortion Funds to talk about what are the conversations that we need to be having with our friends, with our families, with our neighbors, in our organizing group, to really talk about how we move forward, giving the anticipated fall of Roe. How do we move forward rooted in reproductive justice, not just access? And how do we support communities knowing what is going to come next. So if and when you are ready, sidewithlove.org, go to events. There are lots of ways to engage here with us. And of course, make sure you're looking and checking out what's happening in your community, mutual aid networks, local campaigns that are making sure we're building this work from the ground up.
Oh, my question is, because I hate talking on the phone, and when people call me, I usually hang up. And so, which is terrible. Like, it's not a nice thing to say, but it's true. If it's not one of my friends or children or people I'm related, I'm not asking how do phone banks work seriously, but what kind of, do you get a lot of people talking? I mean, are you literally talking about a phone bank, or is it also texting? Is it email? Like, what are the ways of engagement?
Yeah, one of those organizing terms or quotes that we hear all the time: meet people where they're at. So that is what we do, right? We multiple tactics. So of course there are ways of engaging. We send emails. Our state action network are sending emails. We're holding space, holding events for folks to actually be in at least virtual space together. And yes, we phone bank. And with the vote coming in the fall, we will also be knocking on doors, which is the anyone who's done electoral work, we know that is what moves people, right? Actually having that one-to-one in-person interaction. I know when I was in Minneapolis that I forget what the year was, but there was a ballot initiative to define marriage between a man and a woman. And it was going to be a constitutional amendment, and many people supported it. But it wasn't until folks actually knocked on the doors and connected with people and told stories that we saw things shift, where people actually connected with people instead of an issue. And I think that's also what we really need now with the conversation around gun rights or gun reform. A lot of this conversation is so disconnected from humanity, no matter what side you fall on. And there's lots of anonymity, right? We have lawmakers talking about thoughts and prayers. Meanwhile, the NRA is just funding their campaigns. And that's including Democrats, just to be clear. And right, we have people who may own guns, but also support gun reform, but aren't having that rigorous conversation with their networks and with their communities. And we're also not talking about who's being killed, right? We're talking about the guns and not the people. It is children. It is Black people. It is people of color. It is immigrants. It is largely women. It can't be that, okay, the issue is just guns when the people that are being murdered by guns, whether it is a school shooter, whether it is the police, right, whether it is ICE, whether it is a person in a grocery store, it can't be that, oh, the guns just find themselves killing the most vulnerable people in our community. So we need to be having that conversation at the same time. Because we're not going to get at the heart of all the violence, right? The gun violence is just one part of the violence that is enacted upon marginalized people in this country. And that is a hard conversation to have through text. It is not a conversation to have through email, but it is a conversation you can have on the phone, at the doors, at church, in fact, at the dinner table, at your friendship group. We need to develop the moral courage to actually come out and say what the hell we believe.
I think, DC, did you have your hand raised or your voice chime in?
Like what you just said, Nicole, at the very end, we need to find our voice to say what we believe. And I think I was having a conversation with a colleague yesterday, and what we were talking about was we need to get over our fear of upsetting people. And we need to say, now, what are our UU values? And if we stand by, if we observe, if we are passive when things are happening, how is that part of our values? Right? Like we have this unspoken value of not upsetting people. And that's undermining all of the other stuff that we claim to believe and we claim to uphold. And so it's what I call the culture of toxic niceness, where we don't want to upset people, we don't want to make people uncomfortable. Like, I want to know who came up with this thought that we were entitled to comfort. No. Yes. Right.
White people. This is a white people thing. After the Civil War, the South really didn't lose because they were able to hold office because white people in the North didn't want to upset other white people in the South. So that's what we've been living with, this legacy of white people making sure that the needs of other and the comfort of other white people is central. That's huge in Unitarian Universalism. I want and here's what I want to just say about guns, because this is what came up for me. When Sandy Hook happened and privileged 7-year-old white children were slaughtered and nothing happened about automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons or whatever the fuck they are, that's when I knew, like, we yes, Nicole, to everything you're saying, but the truth is what? This country doesn't give a shit about Black and brown people. It really doesn't, right? As a whole. So when it happened, when Sandy Hook happened, I thought for fucking sure at least those automatic and semi-automatic weapons would be banned. And when that didn't happen, I think that we are, I think that there is an underestimation, especially from the fucking Democrats, who think like that some, I don't even know I honestly don't know what the answer is anymore, because it feels like once that happened, and it's like, y'all love your white children, like you don't care about Black and brown children, but I know, and so, you know, where do we go from here? Like, seriously, I mean, most of the children who died in Texas are brown children, and then in Buffalo it was Black people, and you know, we know that I don't know. I guess I'm now rambling, but I guess, you know, in terms of white people being nice to other white people, even that's falling apart a little bit. And so are we just in a civil war and we're in denial about it?
So I'm gonna say something.
Go ahead, Nicole. Yes.
You said like they love their children. And my question is like, do they? And did they? And did they ever? I think Sandy Hook was a defining moment. Because they were like, well, we thought like they're not gonna let these little white babies die. Right. But we have to remember that in fact, this is always about power and control. And the love of power and control is actually far greater than just like the hate of Black people or undocumented people. It is not just like, the power structure, empire disliking a certain people. These identities have always shifted, right? Like who's Black or who's not Black, who's a citizen, who's not a citizen, right? Who has rights, who can vote, right? Those identities always shift according to a power structure that is all bent on maintaining itself, right? So it's actually like, it's about power and control. And whoever needs to be sacrificed to maintain it, they are willing to, right? Because people weren't loving their children, even, during slavery, when they were having their kids develop close relationships, right? With enslaved people in the house, with caretakers, and then saying, oh, by the way, you own them and now treat them. They had to, right, like train them into this type of hatred. And that's not love, right? So yeah, I think that we all need to learn, right, and actually figure out what love is, and also do not underestimate the appetite for death from power and empire.
And do not underestimate the ways in which our society will train its people to fall in line with authoritarianism and replicate systems of oppression and power and authority. I mean, I live in a town where, just as in Uvalde, Texas, the school system, the students in our schools are about 70% Latino. Like almost exactly the same percentage in Peekskill and Uvalde, Texas. Our superintendent is a Latino man. Our school board is majority BIPOC folks. And the response from the school system was, there will be an increased police presence in our schools tomorrow. And I said, who the fuck is that going to help? And who is that going to terrorize? I mean, seriously, like,
Yeah.
all of the Black and brown children in the schools need to see more cops in their schools. Like, that's what they need in this moment, because it's not. It's enculturating people to authoritarianism and to replicating systems of oppression.
You know, I don't know. I don't want to take up too much space here, but the conversation I had yesterday, we were talking about, and it sounds a little upsettingly towards Calvinism, and that is that people and virtue, for the most part, are like electricity and water, in that they will take the path of least resistance, right? And there are some folks who, I was talking about getting sober, and there are some folks who will reach a point in their drinking and they'll say, well, you know, this is probably unhealthy and I should maybe stop. And then there are the rest of us who have to get dragged to our lowest point, and only when it hurts more to stay where we are than to change will we change. And right now, the people in power, the people dishing out this pain, it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't cost them enough to change. They have no interest in changing because what they're doing works for them. And it's only when others stand up and make it hurt for them to keep doing what they're doing, only then will they change. Because they clearly have no moral compass when it comes to this kind of thing. And it's about their own comfort. And this is what makes me comfortable, and I have no reason to change it until it hurts more to stay where I am than to change. Does that make sense? Are people following me? I'm getting 4 or 5 blank looks here. All right, Deanna.
I think on a personal level, you're 1,000% right. And to Nicole's point about power and money, right now the Supreme Court continues to rule that money is free speech. So until that changes, I mean, there is seemingly an endless amount of money in the hands of really hateful, horrific, power-hungry people. And thank you, Nicole, for that point. How can you love your children and allow this to happen, right? And that's your analogy when it comes to DC about individual people. That's true, and it would be true about a society that saw itself as a community. We live in the United States is a cruel place. We don't want universal health care. We have the highest prison population of any industrialized nation by far. It's not even close what the second country is. And we we are so okay. I'm going to now connect the dots. When I talk about reparations, and when I do race work, especially workshops on race, especially in secular spaces, I talk about reparations all the time. And the first thing someone will say to me is, well, we can't just pay out money. We can if we do it all the time. But the second reason we must engage in discussions and action of reparations for descendants of enslaved Africans and the indigenous population is so this country can do collective soul work, collective shadow work, and know that this country is built on the blood of enslaved Africans and the blood of indigenous people. And that's the repair that needs to happen, because this country has always sacrificed from 1619 onwards, from 1492 onwards, sacrificed brown and black bodies, and now bodies don't matter anymore, and people don't matter. There was a TikTok, I totally go down the TikTok rabbit hole all the time, but there was somebody who said, would you kill one person for $1 million or something like that? And then someone stitched that comment and said, but it's happening. Anyone who's a billionaire is already pressing that button over and over and over and over again, and killing people and sacrificing people. So I don't know, when we're talking about people with this much power, there is no bottom for them unless the populace makes it, well, makes it hurt, but chooses to do things differently, unless we pay attention and do things different. There's no incentive for people. There's nothing. I don't think there's an incentive that they're going to come to on their own. It has to come by the populace saying, we don't want to live like this anymore. Question from viewer: Can non-UU churches get involved with Side of Love organizing? Nicole, can non-UU congregations get involved with Side of Love organizing?
Absolutely. Side with Love is it is a program for folks to, in fact, make a choice, right? That says there is a side with love, and then there's a side that's not. And anyone who is, wanting to do that work, wanting to come to that type of understanding, wanting to build community in and through love is absolutely invited to join us. I want to say something about what you said, Aisha. Well, what you were all saying about just like power and money and somewhat related to electoral work and voting and who represents us, is that there is an understanding, there is actual fear in our government system. It's not out of the blue that there are articles about how the actions or inaction of the Supreme Court is dangerous, not because of its impacts, but because it is so far away from what the general public actually believes that people will no longer believe in the institution, right? The government that exists, as flawed as it is, has to maintain some level of validation from the people. And when the people decide, I don't care what the Supreme Court says, when people decide that these laws mean absolutely nothing because they are completely devoid of love, soul, anything righteous, they are in trouble, right? And they know that is growing. They know that people are rising up and bulking at institutions, from the police to the Supreme Court. And so in some ways, they can only go so far until it actually is very, very clear to the majority of people that we are in a regime, right? And unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, right, that's where revolution starts. When you actually have the majority of people that says this whole system needs to be invalidated, right? I don't believe anything coming from their mouths, their laws, their processes. They are in a dangerous position. And that's why we're getting, bullshit policy. That's why we're getting things like that anti-lynching law, where we're not even at all engaging that, like, for that law to mean anything, we would have to, I don't know, continue to lynch and kill Black people. So no, I don't take that as a win, right? That is you saying I expect this to happen, and our win cannot be like, oh, a little bit more punishment for the people who may, right, be convicted. And so I think we do have a space to shift things because the power establishment knows that we're coming for it, right? Because they've clearly said they're afraid. They're like, oh my God, if we keep passing these laws, if the Supreme Court keeps making judgments this way, people won't believe in the institutions. And what happens when people are no longer invested in the system? So like it's happening, and it's going to look different in different communities and different spaces. But it is a space. It is a space to organize, to build power in your communities, so that there is something, right? There is something that we replace this garbage fire with.
Garbage fire. I don't know if one ever not speaks about it anyway. Am I on the screen yet? Oh, I'm down there.
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't see myself. So one of the things, Nicole, as actually all of you were talking, you're talking about a communal response, right? You're talking about the communal response and maybe a little bit of the personal response that can happen, like how you can engage collectively. I want to call us back just a little bit to some of the more individualized or personal things that we can do in this really tender time. So one of the things I know, Aisha, you said earlier that you don't like to be on the phone, but you also make a concerted effort to call people. You have called me up at times when I was not expecting it, but absolutely needed it. There's other people in this space who have put a card in the mail for me, and it has really changed my disposition. Right now, I'm trying to debate about using Michael's words in a sermon because I'm like, is that nepotism? I don't know if it's nepotism, but I'm trying to oh, should I mean, they're beautiful words. So I'm saying, like, how do we maintain the web among each other, right? Like, there's collective work we need to do. There's definitely side of love. There's vote. I could name 100 ways you can politically, collectively, socially move things. But how am I connecting with Nicole and making sure her heart's okay so she can keep doing the work? How are we making sure that our repair isn't just communal and collective, but it's also deep and personal? And to speak just to that on a personal note, so like right now I'm on a social media fast and I'm not in tune with a lot of things that are happening. And so the space that I hold in this conversation is much more of a listening, is much more of an empathy, is much more of understanding the impact on the web. Like Roe versus Wade may not impact you, but if you're a person who's GLBTQI and you're married, it might impact you in 3 or 4 years when they untie that. So I need to make sure you're ready for Roe versus Wade so I can help you be ready for marriage equality. And if your spirit and my spirit aren't combined and ready, the work is going to be even harder. So right now I'm fortifying my spirit, and that's the work, as Nicole called out earlier, like this is the work I need to be doing right now. Nicole's work looks different. So now that I've blabbered on, I just invite folks to say, how are you personally creating a balm for your spirit so you can keep doing the work? Because that's where that's my hard work right now, is making sure that I'm spiritually aligned in the ways that affirm me.
And if I might be so presumptuous, one of the things I heard you say, Nicole, is one of the things side with love, or your team, your larger team, your organizing strategy team is doing, is helping people also support the people doing the work and be that balm and be that support work. And I think, I was struck to hear you say that, and just really in a wonderful way, because we're a religious community, right? And if we're not holding each other and holding each other up and keeping each other spiritually whole and doing that work, then we could be like a political club. And so, did I get that right? That we're one of the ways in which people can engage with this team is by supporting other people, by doing the work of being that balm?
Yeah, I think that, right, like there are many roles, right, in this work. I always say, you know, when people are talking about direct action, well, if you all go to jail, who's bailing you out, right? So
I got a bail team. I don't go do dirt without knowing who's paying my bail.
right, like who wrote the songs you were singing at the action? Who's doing the pastoral care work? Who's taking care of the kids, right? Like there are many roles, and I think, like I said before, right now, get really clear on yours, right? If you are a writer, write the hell out of this moment, right? If you are an artist, like, you know, Tony K. Bambara said, you know, the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. Like, go do that. If you are a healer, right, like be grounded and be with the brokenhearted. If you are an activist, right, like go and do that work. And also sometimes we are all those things, right? So do what feels right and do what you feel called to do in that moment. Yes, you know, kind of formal political action right now is absolutely necessary across the board, across all of the issues, but we hold it together sustainably when we are in our place and we are grounded and rooted in doing the work. So you ask, you know, what am I doing, right, to tend to my spirit? And it's just, it's talking to people. It's connecting with friends. It is showing up to be on The View to see all you wonderful people, even after a 6 a.m. flight, right? Like it is being with people and being in community to remind us that we're still here. Like we are still here, and so is the work, because what's the point otherwise?
I think one of the things I know, I've thought about taking a social media fast, and I think I will at some point this summer. I have found that I feel less alone. And one of the things I'm clear about with at least my social media platforms, I don't use it to change anyone's mind. It is first of all, it's not a thing on social media. No one's reading a comment and going, I'm now going to completely change my worldview. Rather, it is to let folks know that you're not alone. If you want to center liberation and don't want to center violent extractive capitalism, you know, I'm somebody that feels the same way. And so what is strangely given me hope, I don't know that it's strange, but TikTok, I resisted going on it for a long time because I thought it was just for teenagers. I follow a lot of activists, and it's really, I think, I hope, this is my hope, that violent extractive capitalism is underestimating how savvy community organizers, artists, healers, all of them are on, or at least the TikTok, you know, the folks that I follow. And there is, to me, I feel less alone. It's like, oh, you know, something that I thought was a radical thought isn't so radical, because a lot of people think we need to get rid of violent extractive capitalism. This is not a fringe idea. And so I think, you know, knowing that people are out there more and more and being vocal about it. And then there are folks, I follow a couple of people in Germany who are like, here are all the reasons America's trash and you're being lied to. No, America's not the freest country. In fact, here are all the ways you're not free. So we have 5 minutes left. And so before I go down that rabbit hole, anyone else want to, Nicole, first of all, you all need to know that Nicole said yes last minute to coming on The View last night. So thank you so much. You know, any final thoughts from anyone? The floor is open to all.
Well, Nicole, if there was like one thing you'd like VUU viewers to engage with, like right now, what would it be? Like what? Like if you had like all 12 people watching now sign up for one thing, what would it be? And I'm really teasing. We have hundreds of viewers on our podcast.
So there is no one particular thing. There is no one particular action, right? If you want to write a letter with you, the vote, if you want to learn how to become a better neighbor with Create Climate Change and be an Indigenous Solidarity, right? All of that work. If you are not on the Side with Love list yet, please do that. Just go to sidewithlove.org and sign up for the email list, and also go to the website and look at, the events that are happening and join one. If there's any actual tangible things that I would say to people right now is that say yes to being organized. And it, in fact, doesn't have to be with us, but say yes to being organized, to being rooted in a community, because that is how we're going to get the work done. The state is failing us, and when they're not failing us, they're killing us. And it is going to be your local community, your political and spiritual home that is going to hold you. So just say yes to being organized.
Oh, I love that so much. I want t-shirts. Say yes to being organized. I love that so much. Kiana, Danae, Michael, DC, Nicole, thank you so much. Kiana, Danae, do you have you were taking a breath, so I wasn't sure if you were getting ready to pontificate something beautiful. Not at all.
This is it. Go be outside. Go put your actual toes in dirt. Go see a flower. Go see how water runs from one side of the world to the other without your permission and all of its beauty. Go find somewhere where you can hear your small, still voice, wherever that is. Go find some peace, and then tuck that peace in your pocket and take it everywhere you go and share it with anyone who's willing. Those are your marching orders. Go find what brings you joy and go share it with people who love you.
Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit CLFUU.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The VUU.